Welcome to the Cool Girls Create podcast. I'm your host, T. Westbrook, and this is where we celebrate entrepreneurship, creativity, and unstoppable women. Join me as we dive deep into inspiring stories. Let's explore the art of business and the business of art. Cool Girls Create podcast, empowering women to create, innovate, and succeed. Today, we're sitting down with the founder of Black Girl Sunscreen, Shontay. Hey, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, I'm super excited to talk to you about a host of different things, but just tell, our listeners a little bit about yourself and Black Girl Sunscreen.
Yeah, my name is Shontay Lundy. I'm the creator and founder of Black Girl Sunscreen, a revolutionary sunscreen that has eliminated the white telltale residue while incorporating natural ingredients such as jojoba cacao, shea butter, and just all things that make us feel good and look good while being in the sun. Black Girl Sunscreen, we were birthed in 2016, Miami, Florida, and we're currently across the United States in about 10,000 doors. So you can find us in Target, Ulta, CVS, and Walgreens.
Yay. Okay. That's super dope. So I did a little bit of research about you, of course. And one of the things that stuck out to me when I was reading like your past interviews and stuff like that was that you found a need, like a gap in the market when it comes to Black Girl Sunscreen. Like it wasn't something that you dreamed about when you were a little girl, right? So I want more insight on, what made you want to start this particular brand, this particular product? Based on your background, I see that you have your MBA in organizational leadership and stuff like that. So how did you get to the beauty industry and creating this specific product?
It took some time. I'm a woman of the sun. I consider myself a risk taker, a visionary. And, little did I know I had the passion, the work ethic from a little girl. And I have been able to make hard decisions, big decisions, since a teenager. And one of those decisions was literally just, we take these things for granted, but like leaving your house and going to college and never returning, right? So I left at the age of 17 and didn't go back home. After I graduated college, I moved down. So I'm from upstate New York. I moved down to South Florida, did my master's, started working in corporate America for about 10 years or so, transitioned out of corporate America and continued on my journey and moved to Los Angeles. So right there were three large decisions. The first decision was to leave my home and not to return. The second one was to drive down to Florida all by myself to do my master's degree, right? Not necessarily having like friends or just kind of an idea of what I wanted to do. It was just like, hey, I want to go to school. And then like every other, college student, it's about finding a job that has benefits, a job that, is going to give you this paycheck to allow you the ability to live on your own. And so with that corporate experience, I learned really just so much about how, departments should be formed, how departments should work together or not work together, what are leadership characteristics, what are not, how to hire, how to sell. There are so many things that I learned in the corporate space. But when I transitioned out, it was, oh my goodness, my entire life has been so structured. I don't want to do anything. I'm going to move to LA, no house, no job, with the intention of being free. And when I moved here, I currently reside in Los Angeles now. I just took a lot of time of hiking, doing yoga, and not having such a rigid schedule. And what that means for most is it has never happened before, because all of our lives, we have something to respond to, whether it is school, whether it is a job, whether it is a dependent. And even when you go on vacation, your vacation starts whatever, let's say on a Monday, and it might end on Friday. And then that next Monday, you have to return to work. So you do have time to decompress and to, disconnect. But the mentality is like, oh, I have to go back. And moving to Los Angeles, I didn't have to go back to anything. I just was here and doing whatever I wanted to do, which allowed me to think creatively, which allowed me to have a free mind. And that's really how I came up with Black Girl Sunscreen, being in the sun a lot, my friends encouraging me to, wear SPF, and me pushing back saying like, hey, do you see my skin complexion? There's nothing on the market that will even rub into my complexion without leaving a white residue. And so I jumped onto Google to say, and put in keywords like, sunscreen for dark
Did you
skin.
say Auntie Google?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sunscreen for ethnic skin, sunscreen for Black girls, brown girls, and came up just really shorthanded. And then that's when I realized that there was a problem. And did I want to solve this problem? Was I capable of solving this problem? And did I have the confidence to solve this problem? And once all those three questions were a yes, I did something about it.
Man, you said so many things in your response that I would like to touch on. So the first is making those big decisions in life. So, as a millennial myself, or someone who left home and never went back, I can totally relate to, in my mind, always having something to work towards, or specific goals, and having a very structured life, but wanting that sense of like independence. That's what it was for me. And not being like a statistic, or just wanting to be successful because I'm the oldest of my siblings, right? And then you talked about just the transition of corporate America. So from my background, I worked as a financial analyst. So I have a degree in accounting. So a lot of my background is structured as well. And like you said, you can learn so many things from corporate America and bring that over to your life as an entrepreneur or business owner, or passionpreneur. But right now, like culturally, there's like a thing against having a job or working in corporate America. So I wanted to touch on that point because there's so many things that you can learn. And if you're strategic about, your transition or what you do, you can apply that information. So that was the second thing that stuck out to me. And then the last thing that you said was, because you had the time and capacity while you were in LA to just focus on having a life and taking time to like just relax and focus on creativity. I think that's so important. And as a Black woman, I know that it can be hard to do that, to have to be able to have the resources to do that. So just to go into that a little bit more, what were some key things for you that helped you move along that process to be able to have that time for yourself where you could say, okay, I can focus on my creativity, my health, those type of things?
Being in the corporate space, I was able to save money, which then financially afforded me to not have to work for, 5 months or so. But then also not being afraid to not have a job, right? And saying like, you know what, it's okay not to know what's going to happen in the next 5 months, 4 months. It's okay to not know where you're going to work, and it's okay to take time. And that was really my mentality. Like, I think everyone deserves some type of break, some time of just kind of like, we're still citizens, we're still, humans of this planet, but it's a different responsibility when it comes to like tax paying and reporting into, an establishment to help, build that up. It's just a different mindset. Some of us are early birds and some of us are night owls. Like, well, what if you didn't have to wake up at 9 a.m. to crank things out? What if you woke up at 10 or 11? Ate breakfast whenever you wanted, just lived on your own schedule. And that's what we are not afforded to do. And some people need that structure. Some people wouldn't know what to do with themselves. And I think that was a bigger question for me, like, well, what do I do? like, yeah, I love to exercise, I love to walk, I love to think, but not everybody is okay with being alone either.
Mm.
You know, we need friends, we need companions, we need, you know, to be social. And for me, that comes very naturally because I'm more introverted than extroverted. I am a social introvert, meaning when I need to be on, I'm on. But for me, my zen comes when I'm by myself.
What's your
So
sign?
I'm a Libra.
Oh, okay. I'm a Cancer. My husband is a Libra, so I totally understand. Same, same energy. Okay.
That's really interesting. Typically, oh, you're a Cancer. So on the reverse side, Libra women and Cancer men don't get along. Um, so with that though, like that's, I think that's really important. What I just mentioned is being able to be still, being able to be by yourself, being able to be in quiet, because what we learned from the pandemic is that people aren't, they're not okay with being by themselves. They feel lonely, right? So that was something that I didn't experience when I was by myself, whatever, for 4 or 5 months. You know, I had people that I would talk to, you know, regularly, but we weren't sharing the same space. I lived by myself. I hiked by myself. I thought by myself. So I think that's something also that like not everybody is able to do.
You're right. It's so interesting because as a Cancer, I'm very introverted, but because I'm an entrepreneur, I have to have that on effect. But it's so important to have your time to yourself. If there's nothing else that you get from listening to this conversation, is that you need to take time for yourself. Not only, to develop grand ideas, but to maintain a certain, I think, healthy lifestyle where you can be introspective, or have that self-reflection, be able to grow as a person. So that's great that you mentioned that. Now let's fast forward a little bit and talk about Black Girl Sunscreen itself as a product that essentially didn't exist in the market. Are there any um, tips or important points that you would like to reiterate that talks about how do you create, that addresses how to create a market that doesn't exist? What were, some key things that stood out to you during your journey with that, or tips that you can give for somebody who is creating something that doesn't exist?
Man, that's so cool that you have such a brilliant mind to think about something that could be useful um, and sell. So when I think of, Black Girl Sunscreen not existing, sunscreen did exist. What didn't exist was the education and the communication to people of color. That's really what didn't exist. What didn't exist was, people of color speaking up about having sunburn or even melanoma, or the struggle of not going to the dermatologist until they were adults, right? So I think that taking care of our skin overall just didn't exist within our community. We didn't invent sunscreen. We invented a new way of looking at sunscreen, speaking of sunscreen, and making it cool to wear.
Right, right. So when it
So
comes,
my tip is to, when you have an idea, I think it's important to execute on the idea, because when you don't, it just is an idea. And for me, I was juggling three things at one time. I was a full-time employee, right? Because I ended up going back to work. I was in a PhD program, and I was working on Black Girl Sunscreen. But what trumped everything, because it had to be implemented right then and then, was Black Girl Sunscreen. And I said, so educational institutions will always be there. I can circle back. If Black Girl Sunscreen doesn't work, gosh forbid, I can find a job, right? So when it comes to ideas that you feel like are, listen, this is, I have to do this, that is my advice, to act on your ideas. We're only here once. And since I've acted on my idea, I feel like I've found out why I've been put on this planet. I would be totally cool if I had to leave this planet right now. I know it sounds really morbid and scary, but honestly, the work that Black Girl Sunscreen has accomplished is because of our mission and vision. And we have just started to chip away at this mountain, but at least we have started it.
Yes, I don't know why that. See, this is Cancer trait, but that made me feel a little bit emotional when you said that, because I can relate to what you're saying. When you go for something and you start to build it, there's nothing. I don't think there are any words that can describe the feeling that you have when there's impact, right? And so that's how I feel about my businesses and what I do. And I would hope that if you're listening, that's a place that you get to when it comes to following your passion. So let's talk about this. So let's talk about bootstrapping, funding, and stuff like that. So I read somewhere that you use $30,000 of your own saved money to create the initial product or first product for Black Girl Sunscreen. Can you talk to me about that? What was that experience like for you? Or, again, what is something key that you can share with our audience when it comes to bootstrapping your own business?
Prioritizing. So I never really use the word bootstrapping. I use the word like reinvesting, and to each his own. But prioritizing and really, prioritizing, being resourceful, and spending on the important needs, because the time will come. So, I think a pie in the sky, not I think, but a pie in the sky for Black Girl Sunscreen in 2016 was to have our own billboard, right? Because it was traditional marketing. Only big companies had billboards, and it's like, oh, like how much does that cost?
Yeah.
But then we fast forward to, 2021, 2022, we have billboards across the United States. So it is something that like we couldn't have dreamt of, 5 years ago. But then when we actually started making the money and we did raise the capital, it was something that was definitely, attainable. So thinking about things that, if you put it in your plan, it doesn't have to happen today or tomorrow. Maybe it's something that happens, year 3, year 4, year 5. So just spending your money as if it's your own, right? Like not as if it's someone else's. Like, this is your business. Like, do we actually all need Apple computers? Like, yeah, they're great, but you can go to some like, discount stores that will work perfectly fine until you can get, the equipment that you actually want. So I just think that, being resourceful, what are some of the things that you absolutely have to delegate out? So for me, I didn't know how to build a website. I did have to, bring on a contractual web developer. That just was what it was. When it came to social media, I had someone that was helping, but I also knew how to do it too. And I was doing it because it took more than one person. So I think that when it comes to the advice of like, bootstrapping or reinvesting is prioritize your funds, right? And then make a plan to where it's like where you don't feel like your back is against the wall and you have to wait for the last minute to raise. Then what's the plan? Are you going to try to take out loans? Are you asking friends and family? Like, what is that next step?
Yes. And I'm so glad that you mentioned it or you framed it this way, because right now I'm raising money, right? So I'm talking to investors, I'm talking to sponsors, we're fundraising through family and friends, and all of these things. These are things that you should be thinking about way early on. And as an entrepreneur, so when I started, I reinvested everything, my salary, my 401k, I saved, and it was just a constant reinvestment into, the businesses, right? But the problem is, as an entrepreneur, sometimes we think that we have to do things alone, or maybe we think that our business isn't in a place yet where we can afford to hire people out to delegate things to get funding. And I just want to reiterate that the sooner you start to plan and you can visualize and think bigger, the better it is for you as a business owner. And you won't have to scramble, like you said, 5 or 6 years in to get the capital that you need if you're already planning for it and saying, okay, this is my vision for year 2, year 3, year 4. So I wanted to touch on that. All right. When it comes to scaling your business, what is the one tip that you would give to someone about scaling, on how to approach it, And then throw some work-life balance advice in there, because as your business grows, you think you have a handle on things, and then you realize as you get more things on your plate that, wow, work-life balance can be something that is difficult to maintain. So just talk to me about that as well. How are you dealing with this, and what advice would you give when it comes to work-life balance and scaling your business?
So part A is, the scaling. I believe in a model called crawl, walk, run. And I don't think that, so Black Girl Sunscreen, we crawled at first. We started with one retailer, actually in 250 stores. And that was perfect for us because it allowed us to understand, the process of how inventory kind of funnels into these different systems. It allowed us to have the resources financially to fulfill POs. It also helped us understand like what that manpower looked like and what it cost. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then how to, craft a campaign to whatever retailer we're in, and also, balancing our .com, because our .com is also a source of revenue. Right. So then, once you kind of figure out, what that looks like with one retailer, maybe you increase your door count with that retailer, or maybe you go to another retailer, right? Like that's a part of kind of like that crawling, but like standing up, starting to walk. So, the point of that comment is only take on what you think you can handle, because it is going to be a learning process. There's things that you cannot Google. There are things that are not written, and maybe you will only learn from talking to someone that has experienced it. But then even with that time might be limited. You still have to be hands-on. So that's my advice for scaling, is to do a little bit at a time, not to go all in, not to overcommit, and not to overpromise. Take a little bit and master it. Now, when it comes to work-life balance, my work-life balance, what I'm starting to notice, is coming in a different form. So I love Black Girl Sunscreen. I'm on a mission. My foot is on the accelerator, and I'm not letting up until we get to a certain point. Now, what I have started to appreciate is when I travel, to take an extra day or so just to think and to work alone. So not at my home and not at my office. My environment has changed. I'm in some type of hotel room, and there's not much responsibility when you're in a hotel room. You don't have to wash dishes. I have 3 dogs. I don't have to do dogs. I don't have to do anything but order room service and think, jump on the computer, maybe have something on in the background. So my work-life balance is a different form, because I'm using it as a think time. I'm using it as a time for Shontay and to reconnect to the business when I don't have the time, because I'm always in the nitty-gritty of the business. So that's my work-life balance. There's not really a time where I'm completely out.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate that because I travel for my business, and it's not easy, one, to unplug, right? It's when we're doing what we're doing, I don't think it takes a long time to get to a place where you can just like completely unplug from what you're building. However, yep, like you said, taking that time where you're like not at home and not in the office, but you're in a hotel room, and you can just like chillax and think and strategize. I think that is so key and pivotal to being able to grow a business, because a lot of times we're in the weeds, right? Yep. We're in the weeds every day doing all of these minute tasks that you could delegate to somebody else, so you're just always thinking about it. So that's great advice. Is there anything, one last thing that you would like to share with our audience? And then just tell us, what's going on with Black Girl Sunscreen, the coming months or this summer. What do you have going on?
So closing us out, I would say that, again, an idea is only an idea until you actually implement it and take action. So, follow your gut instincts. First and foremost, most important thing. And what's coming up for Black Girl Sunscreen? Honestly, it's about to be sun season now. which is it's cool, but it's a lot of work. I would say, for us, it's more about continuing that education and approaching people that are open-minded about the concept and protecting their skin. We wouldn't be here, we wouldn't have this conversation if we didn't have, a large support group. So be on the lookout for our new products that have hit shelves across the United States. Be on the lookout for Black Girl Sunscreen to be at certain events, and us to be just visible. We outside.
Yeah. Yes, yes. All right. Thank you so much, Shontay. I had a great time chatting with you. And thank you, cool girls and creatives who are listening. See y'all on the next episode.